Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. This is a Series 7 guru coming to you from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas with our Tuesday night weekly community live stream and podcast. Kind of nice. If you miss it, you can find it in the podcast on the YouTube channel or on Spotify as well. We broadcast to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. The easiest way to access and join us is from YouTube. Tell us what series exam you're taking and where you're joining us from. If you're new with us, the way we like to put your questions into the chat so I can pull them out easy and I know what exam you're taking. Because a lot of times, people are just chatting amongst themselves in the community, talking to victorious test takers like Erica. She's got 2 testing victories under her belt. SIE at a 7, working on her 66. And so that's nice. If we have victorious test takers in the house, you don't have to rely upon Dean to tell you what's on the test. We start each of our weekly live stream community podcast Q&As with debriefs. And if you're taking a 65, good news for you, they're lowering the score to 70% on June 12th. They're changing a little bit of the test content specification-wise. My partner in crime, so to speak, my brother from another mother, Brian Lee, the test geek, and I are doing a 65 podcast, and that will be our concluding 6th episode is about those changes. So join us for that podcast if you're a 65 test taker. I do, Erica, good news for you, have some good 66 debrief. Now, remember, every draw you take is a different draw. I'm wishing for you as a test taker a dream draw. Everything you studied shows up. You go, I don't know what the big deal was. And so, but every once in a while you get a face of death draw. So these are 266 debriefs from victorious test takers. One, not to put, I think this makes sense, not to misuse professional designations. By the way, this is on 65 and 63 as well, meaning you can't put RIA on a business card. You could, underneath your firm's name, put registered investment advisor. You can't put on your business card, Erica Taylor, IAR. Erica underneath her name could put investment advisor representative. And needless to say, you can't put CPA or JD or MBA unless you actually have that. So, don't be George Santos. Don't make up non-existent professional designations. Internal rate of return, that shows up quite a bit. And usually that internal rate of return is what brings the future value to the present value. And it's most similar to yield to maturity, not surprising. Make sure you can contrast on all exams an ETN, exchange traded note, from an exchange traded fund. The distinction is an exchange traded note or equity linked note. It's a debt instrument. If you own that, you're a creditor and, you have credit risk. The purpose of a gold ETF in a portfolio, remember precious metals would hopefully provide you with a good inflation hedge. They might provide you with negative correlation to financial assets. A cumulative preferred stock question, no surprise. A beta correlation question, about beta is 1.5, market does 10. That's pretty standard stuff. Identify technical analysis from fundamental analysis. That would be charts, support and resistance, that kind of thing. Fundamental analysis, financial statements, that's no surprise, either bottom up or top down. Credit rating, no surprise, below BBB, less than investment grade. Let's see. Protecting a stock position with a long put. Equity indexed annuities, always on the test, no negative reset. The SOFA question continues to show up, stupid but testable. So they ask you about a customer's personal balance sheet. And where was the SOFA show up? It shows up on the asset side as, a long-term asset because you're not going to sell the SOFA in a garage sale, or we don't expect you're going to do it. I don't know why they ask that question. It's kind of stupid, but, stupid but testable. Let's see. You're definitely going to get questions on quadros, a qualified domestic relations order. Make sure you know that. Let's see. No flow through on a C Corp. Remember, the others have flow through. Always testable in all exams, distinguishing between open-end and closed-end funds. An inverse ETF. Remember, an inverse ETF would go the opposite way of the market. Let's see. No surprise. Total return. Remember, total return is what you make from the income from the investment, plus or minus what you made or lost. That's pretty typical. Efficient market hypothesis. You should definitely know strong form. Nothing works. Soft dollars. Very, very testable. Can't use soft dollars for rent, furniture, or travel. Very testable. What is a limited partner similar to, right? It's similar to being a shareholder in a stock. 12B1 fees. Remember, the max to refer to yourself as a no-load fund is 25 basis points, and the max over the life would be 0.75%. Okay, let's see. Pretty standard stuff. Can you share in a customer account? The answer for an agent of a broker-dealer is yes, with proportionate capital and principal approval. Any other scenario on the test, the answer is no. Okay, so that's some 60/60 debrief for you. Check out our podcasts on YouTube and Spotify. We have episodes there. There's basically 3 seasons of podcast episodes. There's yours truly. There's the Test Geek and Guru podcast. And then there's these are now available, these live streams as podcasts after that. Erica wants me to put a evening class on NASA exam 66. I may do it, but it's not there yet. But I have put some evening classes on my schedule. If you want to check on my Thursday evening classes, you can go to dean10atutoring.setmore.com/classes. Next Thursday, I'm doing a basic option class. It's an hour. It's $35. Now, we also have some free content. Every Tuesday, not every Tuesday, but most Tuesdays, after this session, we have what's called an overtime Zoom session. It'll redirect you to last Tuesday's session, so you can check that out, see if you like it. It's free, and if you want to register for that, it's first come, first serve, and you can actually do that at that booking page as well. If you're a paid student, you get free office hours. So you buy that basic options class, that will free up the free office hours. Those are on the schedule, and that's capped at 5. Classes are capped at 10. Now, just so you know, the other thing I'm going to do is the Thursday following this, there's going to be another class. I don't know what I put the price. I think it's 35, but it's going to be stock plus options, covered calls, protective puts. And then the third Thursday is going to be advanced option strategies. And so what I'm going to do, that's $60. But what I'm going to do, if you buy the first 2, I'm going to throw in the third one free. So that's kind of my game plan as it relates to that. Okay, let's see what's next here. If you want a paid supplement, best free supplement to your paid study materials is my YouTube channel. But if you're looking for a paid supplement, I highly recommend the Kaplan Q Bank. It's the best in the industry. It helps you with a performance tracker. I can be very helpful if you have it, because you can send me QIDs, things like that. If you don't already have one, I also recommend Test Geek. We get a 20% discount there, and that discount code is Guru10. So Guru 10 gets you 10% off on Kaplan products, and Guru 20 gets you 20% off on Bryant. If you join me for my class today, thank you so much. I appreciate it. But if you'd like to join me for a Kaplan class, the evening classes aren't Kaplan classes. They're Dean classes. But I am doing 266 classes for Kaplan. I'm doing one on May 31st through June 2nd. I'm doing another June 21st through the 23rd. Kaplan asked me to teach a Series 9 for them, and I said, okay. And that's June 15th. So if you want to join me for a Kaplan class, you can register on the Kaplan website. And again, you get 10% off with that Guru 10 discount code, right? This is my Q3 schedule. I'm teaching a 24. I'm teaching a SIE at a 7 and a 66. So basically what I do is, when I'm doing public classes, I don't usually do them all the time, but when I do the SIE first, and then the 7, and then the 66. So if you want to join me for your test taking registration hat trick, you certainly can do so. If you are joining us for the first time, we at the end of our time together, we start on time, we end on time. We do a drawing for a 30-minute coaching call. We can do in the coaching call whatever you'd like. You want to do practice questions, or you want tutoring, whatever you want to do. That's your choice. You can assign it if you'd like. You can share it if you'd like. It's not a floating contingent liability I have to you. If you win the drawing, it's going to be at 5 p.m. next Wednesday, May 17th. It's recorded and it's shared with other test takers. You need to claim it within 1 hour of the live stream being over at deantheseries7guru@gmail.com. And then I will send you the Zoom invite for that. Best way to do things on the channel is find the playlist. It's a buffet. So Erica's taking her 66. So there's 2 playlists for Erica, for example. There's a 66 play with lectures, and there's a 66 playlist with practice tests and practice questions. And those are in suggested watch order. SIE has 2 playlists. So don't try and be finding videos in the, video part, because there's like 500 videos. That's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. The 7 is the only one that has multiple playlists. It has like 5 different playlists. All right, so let's get started in our comment sections. Let's see what's going on. Divine Goth, victorious test taker in the house. Woo! We got some victorious test takers in the house. Hey, Wendy, I apologize. I thought you had signed up for that evening class. I went over to check the enrollments. I don't know. I have a brain fart. I've got so much going on. I apologize, but welcome. And like I say, I didn't see you in the class, but maybe it was an office hour or something. I remember seeing your name somewhere. Maybe it was a live stream. Who knows? Welcome, Ryan. I think Series 7 chat with the guru, because I have a DVR, Ryan, so it's queuing up as we wake. So don't give me any spoilers about what's happening. I think the Celtics are going to bounce back today, but we'll see. We'll see. As the old dude, I got to tell you, man, watching all the young talent we have in the NBA is so incredible. So much talent. I thought it was kind of funny, Ryan, when the younger guys, Dylan Brooks, I think this is not a good move, said that LeBron is old and he likes poking bears. I don't think you should be chatting up the idea that you're going to poke a bear. I'm so happy for you. Hey, remember, consider, I think it was you I was talking to today in social media, I think. And I think we were talking about whether you should take a 9 or 10, even though you're probably exhausted based on your SIE, your 7, your 66, your 24. And what I was trying to say is that if you are considering it, I would not wait, because there's so much overlap on the 10 and the 24 that it wouldn't take you much work to just go ahead and knock that out. So that's kind of what I was saying, is that I would strongly recommend and consider, if you think you're going to need to do it, just go ahead and suck it up and just complete the journey now and be done with it. What happens is, if you wait too long, then it's like starting over. You got to, refire back up the rhythm that you're in terms of study. So that would be my recommendation if that was you I was talking to. Bay Area. I love the Bay Area. I spent a lot of my career in the Bay Area. San Francisco. I miss it. I don't miss it enough to move back, but, I do miss it. Tanya, welcome. Good evening. Hey, Ryan, thanks so much. Boy, what a class. We got a good class going on. So I tried to get Kaplan to cap the class. They told me they put the cap at 100. But good news, Ryan, when I kind of complained, they gave me a bill as a content helper, right? Specialist. You need to know that is testable. The one I would attack it from strong form. It's pretty linear. And Eric, I recommend you watch our podcast that Brian and I did. We go over this at length. I like to start with the strong form, which is nothing works, and then work my way backwards. On the test, it's much more linear than test prep vendors make it sound. And remember, hypothesis isn't truth. It's just a way of explaining things. Semi-strong means inside information would work. Material non-public information. In weak form, let me make a note of this, and I will tag this with a video, Erica. We're at 1346. If you're watching this as a podcast on Spotify, I'm not sure if the timestamps actually work, but if they don't, just come over to YouTube and you can watch it as a video podcast. The video description will have that. So what would you recommend to somebody who believes in strong form? You would recommend an index fund, right? If I say, hey, Erica, I just think it's a waste of time and resources to try and beat the market. What I'm really saying, Erica, is I don't believe in alpha. Remember, alpha is that excess return. And then a weak form, the test question sometimes there is that technical analysis doesn't work because everybody has that information. All right, everyone, say hi to Trish. Hi, Trish. Hi, Trish. Northern New Jersey, Rachel, second attempt. So, it's unfortunate when you have the misfortune of missing your mark on the first time. But I would assure you, Rachel, that there are very many very successful people in our industry who are not good test takers, and eventually they got it done. I had a guy just this recently. it's a family operation, and he's the son, and his dad is the guy who is riding me and him pretty hard, in terms of getting him to pass this third time, because it would be a 6-month wait. So, Rachel, what I would say, I don't know how long that, if the hurt is fresh, I will link on 1511 to my podcast episode called "You Failed. Is It Over?" I'll give you a spoiler alert. The answer is no. And I have 5 recommendations for what you should do if you miss your mark to do course correction. Hopefully it wasn't one of those high scores that was close, but you missed it, because those really, really hurt. Scottsdale, Arizona. All right, Madison. I am a Sun Devil. So I spent a lot of time in Tempe, which is contiguous to Scottsdale. I don't know if Madison, going to get to a live class again, but I'm kind of weird. I like public transportation. And I used to teach lots of classes at Schwab's Scottsdale campus. It was beautiful because I could stay at my hotel, and there's a bus that runs right up the road. I catch the bus, and I get off and, ride the bus back. And people make fun of me for riding the bus, but I kind of enjoy public transportation. But it was funny. One day, one of the Schwabies saw me outside waiting on the bus. He was a student, and he said, "You want to ride?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't know." He goes, "What are you thinking about?" I said, "Well, I don't want negative energy, and I'm not going to take a ride unless you're really sure you're going to pass the test, because, I don't want to bond with somebody who ain't going to make their mark." So I also, Madison, have taught a lot of classes at Vanguard's operation in Scottsdale on the other side of the town. And oh my goodness, it was July, and it was like 100+ degrees, and I was wearing shorts and Birkenstocks. And one of the corporate trainers at Vanguard was giving me a hard time. He goes, "I just don't know if we can have you on campus wearing Birkenstocks and shorts. And, don't you think you should be a little more formally dressed?" And I said to him, "Well, I think the less competent you are, the more formally you ought to be dressed." And he goes, "Are you talking about me?" I go, "Well, if the shoe fits, you wear it." Happy Tuesday, Trina. Happy Tuesday. No, we're doing everything. The live stream is windy. I just started when I have a 66 debrief or 7. I just start with whatever debrief I have available from victorious test takers. But it's for all FINRA and NASA exams: SIE, 6, 7, 24, 9, 10, 65, 66. So whatever exam you have a question about, we are here for you. We are here for you. So by the way, that's every Tuesday. None of these are ever about a particular exam. The only thing that are about particular exams is if it's in the podcast as such as a playlist. So, for example, Brian and I have done 6 episodes of a podcast that's just about the 65. It's not interactive. It's just a podcast. So all of our live streams every Tuesday, 5 p.m. are for any exam you're taking. All right. Well, Willie, make sure, I have a day before. It won't do you any good to watch the day before video because it's, the day before. So, but I'll link it for other folks. And the biggest thing at this point is you got to go with what you got. And so what I mean by that is you got to get a good night's rest, Willie, because your reading skills tomorrow are going to be very important. And, RTFQ, read the full question. RTFA, read the full answer set. I don't know about you, Willie, but boy, when I'm tired, my reading skills are really diminished. So I know it can be stressful, but as much as possible, try to get a good night's rest tomorrow. Dream of passing your exam, right? Woo, and then have some confidence tomorrow. So be confident in yourself, and most important, be confident in your answers. Don't be changing answers. And, you'll make your mark. You'll make your mark. You can circle back and tell us of your victory. Yeah, those questions. My debriefer is pretty good, and Kaplan's pretty good. I work with Chuck there. We're pretty good. And Brian, we're not allowed to ask you like what was question 35. But, we can ask you, what do you think we should have spent more time on? What could we better prepared you on? And yeah, that sofa question is just there. It's just crazy. I don't know why. I just really don't. Well, representation letters can be several things. It just depends on the context and situation. The most often where that comes up is where I'm doing IPO allocations. So let's say, I'm Morgan Stanley and I'm taking a company public. And, there are restricted folks, people who can't have the IPO allocation. That would be, associated persons of Morgan Stanley, their immediate family members. If they're not immediate family members and they're financially dependent, they can't have it. And we have what are called undisclosed investment entities. And so, maybe I'm talking to Andy Kessler. Andy Kessler is a former Morgan Stanley alum, and let's say he has a hedge fund. He doesn't have any more because he retired, but let's assume he still has his hedge fund, Velocity Capital. And I'm talking to Andy about giving him an IPO allocation for his hedge fund. And I say, Andy, I wouldn't be surprised if you're managing money for restricted persons in that collective investment entity, that partnership, that hedge fund. And so what I need, Andy, is a letter from you, a representation letter, that if I give you the IPO allocation, it won't show up in a restricted account. This could be an investment advisory firm. Maybe it's Fisher Investments. And Fisher Investments is going to tell me who the client is, but they want the IPO allocation. So I'm going to ask them for a representation letter. The representation letter is representing to me that it's not going into a restricted account. Now, if it's a collective account, like it's a hedge fund, for example, I say, Andy, do you have carve-out procedures in place? In other words, if I do give you the IPO allocation, do you have accounting such that you can make sure the restricted person isn't participating? Again, if he says yes, then it's going to be okay. If he says no, it's not going to be okay. Now, this representation letter has to have positive affirmation. What does that mean in plain English? What that means in plain English is I have to get back from Andy that he's signed the letter acknowledging that we've had this discussion. And then after that, it's going to be negative consent. So what that means is every year I'm going to remind him that we have this letter on file. And if this isn't the case, to please contact us. That representation letter has to be on file 12 months. So if I'm opening an account like this, I probably want to immediately get the letter. So if I don't have the letter, and he says, well, I'll give you the letter. I said, well, too late. The IPO is next week, and we have to have on this representation letter on file for 12 months. That is a more of a 7-question and a 24-question. I can't imagine you'd see anything about a representation letter, on the SIE or the 6 or 65, 66. Maybe on the 10, But what I meant by the context is there are other situations in which I might ask somebody for a representation letter. These are, this is a generic name, but that's where it shows up on the test. But, for example, can you believe it? Talk about how the world is changing. I have somebody who's talking to me about being an official social media influencer for them. Like, who would have thunk it? Anyways, I'm considering that. And so maybe they say, Dean, we would like a representation letter about what you're currently doing on the channel. And maybe I'm doing like Thursday evening classes. And they say, well, Dean, we want you to represent to us that you're not going to actually start competing with us and doing, 3-day Series 7 classes, for example. And so I would sign the representation letter saying, indeed, I'm representing to you that that's not what I'm going to be doing. Oh, those 2-question fails really hurt, man. Those hurt for sure. They hurt for sure. So, good news, I guess. That's why for a couple things. For those of you who have not had that misfortune, I would want to tell you that you really need to overlearn this content because you want to be able to take down any draw of the test. What I mean by that is you want to be able to take down, we're hoping you get the dream draw. Everything you studied shows up. You go, I don't know what the big deal was. But you got to be able to take down those fate to death draws too. And so sometimes that could have been the variable. The draws are just random. There's no real face of death draw, dream draw, but that could have been the draw. Did you change answers? That could be another variable. And most firms, I think, are very sympathetic because they know that if you get a high 60 plus, or just even a 60 plus, they know you put in the work, but for whatever reason, you missed the mark. And so I don't know of any firms that won't send you back for a second attempt if you're in the 60 range. I did have in social media, somebody told me that their firm told them they're not sending them back. I went, wow, that's kind of harsh. That wouldn't be my expectation. So again, you can check out, you failed your exam. Is it over? The answer, again, spoiler alert, is no. And I have 5 steps that I think you should take as somebody who's missed their mark. 5 steps that you should do immediately, how you respond to that. Listen, don't respond this way. There was a guy on social media this week. I can't believe this. I'm glad he doesn't work for me. He said he's going to petition FINRA because he thinks there were too many option questions on his Series 7. Good luck, my friend. Now you can petition, If you miss two questions, you know which two questions they are, and you know what you answered, and and then very rarely they say, "Okay, we'll agree with you. You could have misinterpreted that question," even though those questions are tested for validity. But he's got zero chance. By the way, the other thing, Colby, I felt bad about is I wish you would have watched my podcast, because that's not really what your sponsoring broker dealer wants to hear when you come back. They don't want to hear that you think you had to face a death draw, and rather than passing the next time, that what you're going to do is petition FINRA. So I joke, I think of myself in those situations as your accountability partner, and I'm saying, listen, you need to hold yourself accountable for having missed that mark. There is no live stream overtime session tonight, Wendy. After this session, it'll redirect you to the recording of last Tuesday's overtime session. So if you want, you can check it out and see what we do on those Tuesdays. I'm teaching a Series 7 class this week, Wendy. I think you're in it, actually, as I recall. Forgive me if my brain is, not where it should be. I think you're in the class. Ryan's in that class. And I don't do the live streams when I'm teaching all day because, it's exhausting. And, I want to make sure I'm with you guys tomorrow morning, because tomorrow morning, remember, we're doing straddles and spreads. And I want you to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I want to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed as well. Okay, so Madison, if you're taking Series 7, thank you so much. That means the third session that Thursday is free for you, and that'll be spreads and straddles. And when I get a moment, what I'll do is just put you in there, and you'll get an invite for that third session. So buy two, get one free. Caesar, welcome. Greetings and salutations again. Indeed. Caesar is also in our Series 7 class we got going on right now. Always nice to have familiar faces in there. People have told me they hear my voice. I had to, I make a joke about if you, when you dream of foreign language, that's when you know it. Not a nightmare, a dream. And anyways, this person said, Dean, this is the weirdest thing, man. Last night I had a dream and you showed up and we did margins. I go, well, cool. Tonight I'll show up and we'll do options. May, I like it. I like it, Cynthia. So I think the 24, the time to do it is right after the 7. Because again, a lot of people struggle on 24. It's because it's been 10, 15 years since they took a 7. So I'm a big fan of, once you're in this, matriculating mode of taking exams, and you think there's any exam and your employer will let you do it, I would just run the table. And that way you're done with it. It doesn't, come back later on. So, that's why I was sharing with the person who had a really successful run and was telling me they were thinking about taking a break. I get it. I totally get it. But I was kind of saying, well, maybe it would be a better break if you just go ahead and suck it up. It was not necessary, my understanding right now, for their employment. But the firm asked them, and, I was thinking, well, maybe you want to consider saying yes to that, even though I know it's, you can wear yourself out. I get it. But I think that's the way to do it. 63 is kind of difficult because you don't have many performance opportunities on a 63. Right. I mean, it's not a lot of performance opportunities. I have a great video called The Mighty 90. I'll link to that. It's what I tried to do, I know how successful it was, but I basically took my 4-hour 63 class and tried to do it in 90 minutes. And so that Mighty 90 is the Uniform Securities Act in 90 minutes. I haven't had anybody take me up on this, but I think you could pass the 63 by just watching that video. I wouldn't want you to put your career at risk. It's also relevant to people taking 65, 66. So check out the Mighty 90, the Mighty 90. 19th. All right, cool. So you got about a week or so, about 7-10 days out. You should be taking a practice test, getting a score, getting a mark, seeing where you're at to determine whether or not you need remediation. You have time for remediation. I just had somebody today, please, reach out sooner. This person, I literally, just before we got on the live stream, I had somebody send me an email saying they're testing tomorrow. Do I have any advice? I'm like, well, kind of like, get a good night's rest. I mean, the same advice I just gave here, and by the way, they were a little panicked. And I thought, man, I wish they would have reached out, when there was time to do something about it, 3 or 4 days, 5 days out, we can do something about it. Oh my God. Well, you're not at risk at all. If you're getting on a Kaplan practice exam, 87, 86, you are not at risk. And I would hope that you could test sooner. Maybe you want to consider saying, I'll take a drop date or something. That is fantastic. Kudos to you, because that represents a lot of work. To get that kind of a score, you got to really be working. It also means you have to have a, kind of an affinity to it. The only thing I would qualify, I don't want to be giving you any negative vibes because those are fantastic scores, but try not to memorize questions and answers. So hopefully you're not going, oh, I remember this. It was B, it's A. Well, yeah, past perfect really takes people into the weeds. So I'm glad to hear that. I think if you're past perfect, I think you do need a supplement, either paid or free. The channel is free. And the Kaplan Q Bank I think is great. And what I would want you to do is use it as confirmation. So, it's hard on your own to determine whether something is important or not. I give kudos to Erica because Erica, I don't mind because she's, she works hard. She's earned the right to do this, even though I tease her sometimes, but beyond being funny. But, you know, I'll get a text from her and, she's earned the right to have my personal cell phone number and, have me interact with her in this way. But she'll ask me, is this testable or not? And I'll say yes or no. And many times it's a past perfect question where I say, hey, you ain't going to see something like that. Sometimes it is. So that past perfect, you might want to consider, please, I'm not going to do it for you, what I'm doing for Erica, for that's, 20,000 people. But, you can do that by getting a Kaplan Q Bank and using it for confirmation. So the great thing about having more than one source is that if you're not monogamous, you can use that to confirmation. I'm a big fan of a Kaplan Q Bank, obviously for the reasons I teach for Kaplan. If I didn't think they're the best, I wouldn't do it. But also, there's strong correlation. So I know there's a lot of people that like to use other paid supplements like Achievable. And I love Brandon. I think his content is great. But there's not strong correlation or strong enough for me. I just put it that way to feel comfortable as that being your standalone, either paid, study materials, or to use it in the way I'm talking about in terms of, using it to confirm test issues with STC or Past Perfect and Kaplan. So I would want you to add a Kaplan Q Bank. Yeah, boy, I'll tell you, Jimmy Butler, man, that guy is built to compete. Man, he is incredible. I mean, it looks like they're trying to stop him, Chelsea, and then I know how you stop him. I've always been a Heat fan because I go way, way, way back. And the way back machine, I go back to the Lakers when Pat Riley was a player. That's how old Dean is. And then when he was a video coordinator, and then he was a coach, and then he went to the Knicks. And so, yeah, the Heat has a great winning culture. Great winning culture. No, Wendy, tonight we do not have the overtime. Tonight we have a video replay of last week's overtime because I'm teaching that class you're in. So tonight there is not a live overtime. It's a recorded overtime from last week. Next Tuesday, there will be an overtime. I typically do them if I don't have a class or something going on. All right. Ooh, it's so neat if you have a significant other that's helpful. So some of us are blessed with significant others that are helpful, and some maybe not so much. So I always joke. One thing I was joking, I say, I like flashcards. I think flashcards are underrated as a study, material. And I joke sometimes I would have two decks of flashcards. One I use to study, and one I use to get rid of significant others who are bothering me while I'm studying. Hey, honey, can you run the flashcards with me? I had somebody, she passed, and boy, kudos to people like this. I had a single mom, and she could only study in the mornings before she put the kids off. Single mom, had no support network. She passed. It makes me be less sympathetic to people who do have a support network. But what a great husband this guy was. He said that he agreed to take care of the kids, and she took 2 days to go to a hotel next to the site and study. And I thought, man, that would be nice. I mean, if somebody can do that, that's, if you have those kind of support. If you don't have the support, join us on Tuesdays. You don't have to be alone on this stuff. On this journey, one thing I hate about the pandemic is it's made us a lot more people isolated. In the old days, there'd be 20 or 30 of us in a cohort. We're studying together and we're going to go test in the same kind of window. And if somebody's having a bad day, we could take them to lunch or, after work, have an adult beverage. And we just have lost some of that as a result of the pandemic. And I'm not sure we're ever going back. So I'm glad that you have a support network and a great husband like that. But if you're one of those folks that don't, try and get yourself plugged in, whether it's here or on our Reddit community. We have some Reddit communities that people can participate in. There's some Facebook groups. So, stay plugged in. One of my things I just am so heartbroken about is sometimes we won't hear from anybody in any of our communities until they've missed their mark. So the first time we hear from them is, after they've had the misfortune. And part of me is like, well, gee, they'll say something like on our Reddit community, they'll say, well, I've been lurking for 3 months and I just missed the exam. I'm like, well, I don't know what to say, but part of me wants to say, why were you lurking? Why didn't you put in a post and say, hey, I had a bad day today, or I took a practice test and here's what I got. And, Divine Goth, I appreciate your activity on our Reddit communities. I think those communities are very helpful for people. What's great about them is you can remain anonymous too. You don't have to tell us who you are. I joke, Divine Goth, in that 24 Reddit, sometimes people put in there questions. I'm like, man, I'm glad this is anonymous because, one guy had put in something that's called parking, which is a violation. Well, no, that's not a good thing, right? So, all right, cool. There you go. Well, thank you so much. 65 on the 26th. I like that. Sarasota, Florida. I love it. The 65 is a lot of stuff. I call a 65 a baby 7. There's a lot going on in that 65. About half of it is regulatory framework, and the other half is investments. I don't know, Mary, if you have a 6, 63, and now you're taking the 65, or if you're taking the 65 as a standalone, and I don't know what your background is. But if you're a tabula rasa, a blank slate, and you're just coming into the securities industry, and your buddy has like a fee-based investment advisory firm and says, hey, why don't you join me? Take a 65. Woo! That can be a real challenge. Simple Mama says, hi, Trish. David, studying for the 10 now. What do you really feel you need to know? Well, I consider Series 10 sales supervisor babysitting 7s. And there's not any one area that's target rich. That's a real slog. Don't tell David anybody I told you this, because I always tell people to watch my series in 60 minutes the day before their exam. But if you want a broad overview of the Series 10, you can check out my Series 10 in 60 minutes. And you could also check out in the Series 10 playlist the introduction. In each playlist, I typically do an introduction based on the content outline. So check those out, and you can get an overview of what you would see on the 10. As I was telling, I think it was Divine Goth today, if she looks over that content outline of the Series 10, she would see that it's very similar to her Series 24. So I encourage you. Have you already done the 9, David? The 9 is easier. So I'm not sure, what order you're considering it. If you already have a 9, the 9 is much easier than the 10 in terms of it's more contained. It's more straightforward than the 10. Do a hot debrief ASAP on which one, Wendy? The 7? Well, the 7s we pretty know. I don't get, for some reason, I'm getting all kinds of 66 debriefs, and I haven't really got any 7 debriefs that I really think are worth sharing with you, because it's pretty much the same thing. Everybody knows it's there. But if I get one, I'm more than happy to share it for sure. 64. There you go. Good evening. I love your avatar. I love that avatar. There you go. Yeah, Kaplan exams are the best, Jake. There's no better practice exams than Kaplan. That Kaplan Q-Bank is excellent. You can watch me, Vanya, I think it was Vanya. She gave me permission in her tutoring session. A lot of time in tutoring sessions, people like to do practice exams on a shared screen. And sometimes they'll give me permission to share their tutoring session. And she did. And you can watch her and I do an entire Series 66 exam. I don't expect you to sit there for 2 hours, but you can hit pause and go get a cocktail and come back. And, she answers and I walk her through it. So there's that. There's another Test Geek Series 66 practice test, which has very strong correlation. So I think in that 66 practice test playlist, there's 6, 7 practice exams, and 2 of them are Kaplan, at least 2 of them. So yeah, Kaplan has very strong correlation to the actual exam, particularly on NASA exams. Jake, the subject matter expert at Kaplan for NASA exams is a guy named Chuck Lowenstein. And he's very eccentric. He's an old dude like Dean, but boy, does he know NASA inside and out. So, and I talked to him quite a bit. And I get a question, and I think, man, I bet Chuck could probably answer this question better than me. And I'll send him an email, and oh my God, he'll send me a 3-paragraph answer. Yeah, well, Ryan, in my younger days, I was, the answer to that would be yes. Well, examples of questions. We can't ever give you examples. We can't violate copyright on the Series 66. But I did tell you there's lots of debrief. I shared Chelsea debrief at the beginning of this this podcast, live stream, whatever you want to call it. And for the last 3 weeks, there's been debrief on 66, I believe. So if you watch the beginning of the last couple weeks episodes, I start those with debrief on 66. Yeah, I sure can, Cynthia. Both what they have in common is preferred stock and a bond are fixed income investment vehicles. So from the issuer's perspective, preferred stock is equity. From the issuer's perspective, bond is a debt. But as an investor, they're both going to react similarly in my portfolio because they're both fixed income investment vehicles. So what that means in terms of similarities, very testable, is that if interest rates go up, both the price of a preferred stock and a bond will go down. That's really, really testable. That's called that inverse relationship. As I said, Cynthia, if you want to sound smart and somebody asks you about economics, finance, or investments, and you want to sound smart, you could say it has a lot to do with interest rates. And if you just shut up, you sound pretty good. Somebody says, what about them? You say they fluctuate. They fluctuate. And so that's how they're similar in terms of how they react in the portfolio. By the way, the preferred stock, Cynthia, is actually more dangerous than the bond. And what I mean by that is, at least when you own a bond, Cynthia, in your portfolio, and interests go up like they're doing now, I say, well, Cynthia, as you recall, when I sold you the bonds, we said that we were going to hold them to maturity. And if we buy bonds and we hold them to maturity, Cynthia, we're going to be immune from fluctuating interest rates. When I was a practitioner, whenever I would buy somebody a bond, I would say, Cynthia, we may buy bonds in the secondary market. We may buy bonds in the primary market. But what we're not going to be doing, Cynthia, in your portfolio is selling any of the bonds we buy. When I buy a bond in your portfolio, we're holding it to maturity. So even though you're getting a statement every quarter and it's showing that the secondary market is going down, it doesn't matter to us because we're not going to be participating. Now, that's why it's less dangerous than the preferred stock, because the preferred stock is a fixed income investment vehicle with no maturity. It is no maturity, right? So that means the only way you're getting out of a preferred stock is to sell it to someone else for more than or less than. So in that regard, the preferred stock, similar to bond, has interest rate risk, and it actually has more. Now, the other thing I would tell you, Cynthia, that I get all the time on Series 7, and I don't know how to respond to this. I can't tell you how many test takers will tell me they had more preferred stock questions than they were expecting. I don't know what to make of that because, I don't really know how many they were expecting. So needless to say, I would tell you to overlearn preferred stocks because you are going to see them straight, convertible, cumulative, right? That kind of thing. Nice. I don't know about sneaky topics. I don't think they're trying to sneak up on somebody, Ryan. I mean, I think a sneaky topic is revealed to you afterwards when you after you miss your mark, you think it was sneaky. I'm joking, but whatever people aren't prepared for, that's what they swear they had a lot of it. I don't know. There's it's not sneaky and it's not really topics. I would say there are sneaky questions perhaps where you get some question from outer space that you weren't prepared for. I know it again, it hurts my heart because I know you're not going to watch all 500 of my videos. But I can't tell you how many times somebody will tell me they've seen a question that I have actually addressed content-wise on my channel. And, my part of me says, well, damn, I wish you would have watched that particular video. But, I wouldn't call it sneaky. I'd call it esoteric questions. That is a question. Hi, Dean. So let me see what the question is. 763 now transitioning to 65 or 66. Well, I don't know. The 66 has less content on it. A lot of times what you might want to consider is doing the 66, but if you miss it, take the 65 right away. There won't be a 30-day wait period. But a 763.65 is the equivalent of a 766. There's no difference, Scott, between what you can do. Oh, by the way, that's a beautiful looking dog you have there. God, that's gorgeous. Anyways, there's no difference in what you can do registration wise with 7, 63, 65. The biggest difference is 65 has more economic content on it. So maybe you want to consider taking a 66. And if you miss the mark on that, then go immediately for the 65. And I don't know your background, Scott, and how much time you've spent in the industry, but I would particularly recommend that if you're, GDP and you have an understanding of interest rates, because that means if you have that 65 as the fallback position, it won't be so bad because you'll know some of it already. Took a month straight, took a 3-day Kaplan course. Since then has doubled. Oh my God. Yeah, I think, I would ease into it. So you can't just, start powering back up. So I would come up with a plan of easing into it. So remember, I recommend what I call study blocks. And study blocks that I recommend are 45 minutes to an hour and a half. And so what I might say is, why don't you start with putting a couple 30-minute study blocks on your schedule? Maybe, just some light reading on Monday and do one on Wednesday and do something light reading and then power up that way and then start adding back in some longer and more study blocks. And then when you're feeling kind of comfortable, like you're back kind of into the rhythm, I would take a SIE practice test, see how you do, and see how much of that information is still up there from your previous study effort. And, are you going to have to just fine tune some of it's still up there, or you're going to have to completely restart your study effort from ground zero. So that's what I would be looking to do. All right. Kudos, Ben. What's next? What's your next testing victory? The 7, the 6? Kudos on your testing victory. I'm really, really pleased. We've had this week so many people pass their SIE. It's just so gratifying to go on the channel and see all these victory posts of people that are passing their SIE. When I started the channel, it was primarily, we had most of our viewership was coming from the 7. And I'm really happy now that we're getting more people who are joining us through the entire matriculations, like Ben, and we have a lot of people like yourself who are matriculating. They do their SIE, and we contribute. You're doing the work, but we contribute to the victory. Then they do the 7 and 66, and it's really kind of cool. Really kind of cool. Erica says she's ready to win the drawing. I got a couple more minutes here. What's the word triple P? Does that mean triple pass, Erica? We can certainly make that the for you. Those of you who are new to our live streams, when we do the drawing, the way you enter the drawing is through the chat, and you put a word in there. Don't put it in yet because I have to put it in there. It won't register. And then we hit the wheel of fortune, and the thing spins around. And I think Erica won once. I think you won once, right, Erica? I don't know who won last week. The only rule we have is that you can't win 2 weeks in a row. So you win. The channel or buffet, take what you. Well, that's me. What happened? Is you repeating back my own stuff? What happened? Did I accidentally hit my banner? Yeah, it looks like I hit my banner. Sorry. Let's see where we're at. So Erica was asking about winning the thing again. If I miss you, by the way, it's not intentionally. So just just put it back in the chat. Just put it back in the chat if I miss you. It looks like I might. There we go. I think I'm back on track here. Almost there. 3 more weeks. Yeah, I think you're on course. So stay the course, Mary. I had somebody today in social media. I said, listen, you're right where you need to be. They go, what should I think of these scores? I said, you should think you're right where you need to be at this point and you're executing your study plan. So, excellent. Well, remember the 3 styles of questions are recognition, practical application, and judgment. On the 63, there is a challenge, but on the 63, there is no judgment questions and there are no practical application questions. So the 63 is primarily, again, recognition. I'll call that recognition, but it sounds like you're calling it memorization. Right on. Go Heat. Go Heat. Yes, you got to read the book. I don't know why people keep asking me that. I'm a book guy. I'm never, ever going to tell somebody that you don't need to read the book. I had a person, this guy was incredulous. He said, do you think I need to read the book? I go, yes, you do. You need to read it cover to cover. And he said, how long is that going to take? I said, well, read for an hour, see how many pages you've read, then take the page count, divide, and that'll tell you how many hours that's going to take. Don't try and take notes or understand it. You're just trying to see what's between the covers. So don't be struggling. My goal would not be to struggle. My goal would simply be to get from cover to cover without notes, without understanding, just to see what's there. Now, the other solution is you could also buy another book. You could buy Series 7 for Dummies, for example. I think it's like $20 or $30. Maybe you get some other content or reading that you could find more better. I mean, none of this stuff is prose, and I don't know if you're using, Past Perfect. Oh my God. So, Kaplan, again, all the test prep vendors, I buy every test prep vendor's course just so I can see what they're up to. And I'm with you. Some of those, I know the stuff, and I find the reading to be difficult. So I'm with you. I'm empathetic. Yeah, you got to read. I mean, reading is, part of our job. I mean, single dad. Well, kudos. You bet. By the way, and then remember, you carve out the time to, I don't know, as we were talking before, it can be difficult. I get it. Like I was telling you about that young mom who passed, man. That's got to be really tough to find time to just carve out to read or do whatever she needs to do when she's got all those other challenges going on. Well, welcome. I'm glad, Jeremy. So it looks like 63, right? You got to finish up. Are you going to have to do the 65 as well, or are you almost done? Yeah, the hot debrief. There you go. Was to the person who failed. Thank you. Well, Wendy, I think realistically, if I were your accountability partner and you'd pass the 7, I think you can take too long, but I'd want you to be comfortable. Right. So, I don't know. If you told me 4 weeks, I'd say, how about, 3? Right. You need some time, but you don't want so much time that by the time you get to the test date, you're forgetting stuff you learned earlier. So I think realistically, you could pass the 66. Again, it depends on whether you're a full-time studier or not. Assuming you're a full-time studier, I would think 3 weeks would be a reasonable expectation. Do great in practice quizzes on Kaplan, but I get the mock exams, my scores. That's fine. You just got to keep working. I had a guy, Madison, too. I don't know if you're stacking them on top of each other, but basically, I thought the guy was. It's possible. I mean, it's better to have this problem than not. But I thought he was working a little too hard. Realistically, you can only do like 3 study blocks of an hour and a half. So that's what, 4.5 hours a day that you're really going to be able to do sustained concentration. I mean, 4 is kind of pushing it. But anyways, I thought he was doing too much. I said, well, do me a favor. We were talking. It was morning. I said, take today off, refresh, reset, come back to it and see if your scores don't go up. And he went from mid-60s to mid-70s just by relaxing and getting some rest. So that would be one thing I would suggest to you is make sure it's just not a tired problem, that you're just not tired when you're reading. So, take an afternoon off, get some sleep, and, maybe even take the following morning off, get back to work on the afternoon and see if when you do the refresh and the reset, that those scores don't go up. A month and change out for passing die. Do you suggest pass perfect? No. I mean, if you're a reader, Cynthia, I mean, I'm a reader. I typically would read something twice. Everybody's a little different, but so Cynthia, when I'm trying to learn as a learner, every learner is unique. I always read the book once cover to cover without trying to understand it. Then I go back and I read it with the idea that I'm going to try and understand it. Right. So I'm going to go a little slower and then I'm going to do it by subject areas. But another thing you might want to consider if you're somebody who, is reading is not your thing and as a learner, you could also use videos to put a dent in the reading. So what I mean by that is you could go watch a Dean video on bonds, for example, and then read the bond section. And sometimes that putting that dent in there will soften it up. You could also do that in terms of Madison. You could also do that maybe in your example, maybe you watch a video before you read or after you do it. You read it, you watch the video, and then do your practice questions and see how you do. So I might recommend that for both of you guys in terms of you gals, in terms of what you're doing. We always, Oscar, are sending you good testing vibes. So nothing but good testing vibes here on our live stream every Tuesday. Always. Told you so. I'm not sure what that was about, Erica. I missed that in the stream. Yeah, we got lots of 66 videos for you. So remember, there's 2 playlists for the 66. There's lectures, narrative videos, and then there's a whole separate playlist with practice test and practice questions. If you're using a Kaplan Q Bank, the other good thing about it is you can just send me a QID number, and I can see what you're looking at backstage, and I can make you a little video explanation of it. There you go. Why was it said that municipal bonds and government bonds are separate and never the two shall meet? I'm not sure. I think what Brian was maybe trying to say is that they are different in terms of investment vehicles. Lending your money to a city, county, or state, or transit district, or school district is an entirely different proposition than lending your money to the U.S. government. And maybe what Brian was saying is that on the test, we don't consider the state of Nevada to be a government issuer of securities. On the test, we assume that the states are municipal issuers of securities. So maybe that's what Brian meant, David. I'm not quite sure. I talked to Brian quite a bit. By the way, you can call Brian. Brian does answer his phone, and you can talk to him. Every once in a while, somebody will give me on his Test Geek practice questions, practice tests. I'll say, listen, I'm not here to defend Brian's question. Call Brian. He'd love to talk to you, and he's more than happy to explain to you what he meant by that. So I don't know if you saw that in a video or one of our podcasts, perhaps, but probably the better person to ask would be Brian, and I'm sure he's more than happy to tell you what he meant by that. And I'll tell him that it came up in the live stream. He's a big hockey fan. I don't know if the Kraken are playing tonight, but on most nights, most Tuesdays, Brian does join us, but he's always a very special guest. But if he his significant other, she wants to go to the hockey game or do something, that's probably going to be more important than joining us on our live stream. Yeah, you can do that too with Kaplan. You can create your own custom exams. In a Kaplan, as you probably know, I think you use Kaplan as well. One thing I love about Kaplan is we have at Kaplan a performance tracker, and the performance tracker helps you find the areas that you need to work on for remediation. So that's one of the great features. I don't know if STC has that feature, but I know that Kaplan does. There you go. 63 is next. Yeah, I think that's great, right? Where you can find it. You still need those longer time frames. I had a senior executive at this company, and I said, listen, you've got to carve out the time to do this. And I said, you need at least 45 minutes, an hour and a half. I was talking to her, and she goes, Dina, you'd be proud of me today. I did 45 minutes. I go, you did? She goes, yeah. I did 15 minutes on the subway. I did 15 minutes at lunch. I did 15 minutes on the subway back. I go, well, listen, that is not going to work for a series 9 and 10. That's just not going to work. But yeah, doing practice drilling, rehearsing when you got 15 minutes, why not? Why not? Very testable, Mary. You can't assign an investment advisory contract without the permission of the client. Now, majority of the partners, but not other examples. What you want to think about is put yourself in the situation. What I mean by that is any question, say, okay, I have an investment advisory contract with my investment advisor. Under what circumstance do I feel like that contract is being assigned without my permission? The phraseology for that is change in control. Change in control. So what I would suggest, Mary, is maybe find a practice question as an example, and you can send that to me at Dean the Series 7 Guru at gmail.com. And that might be a way where I can be a little more helpful by explicating the question that you're struggling with. If it's more than one, that's fine. But in the context of a question is probably the better way to help you on that. But that is indeed very testable. I can't imagine any draw of 63, 65, or 66 in which you're not going to be asked that, right? So, all right, looks like we're getting closer to our drawing here. Trina won last time. Yeah, okay. I remember I talked to Trina with a coaching call. I think Trina, that was a great coaching call. I like it. You get to talk about whatever you want, but Trina wanted to talk about customer accounts, which was target rich. So thanks, Erica, for reminding that. And that's great because remember, we share it. And that's a video that's definitely worth sharing. We went over customer accounts. That's very testable on the exam. So we'll talk about whatever you want, but in her case, it was customer accounts. And I knew we weren't going to be able to get that done in 30 minutes. So you remember, I only owe you 30 minutes, but in her case, we did it till we got it done because it was important. Yeah, I agree. And, I agree. I don't know what people think. I think they hope that they keep asking enough. Somebody's going to tell them, no, you don't need to read the book. By the way, it's bad advice. Whoever tells you that there are some old school men and women out there who tell people, no, you don't need to read the book. Just do all the practice tests and go take the test. That's terrible advice. That is terrible advice. So, and by the way, then every once in a while, I don't delete people who make comments on social media. I'm a moderator, so I have a key that can delete things. But sometimes people make these outrageous posts that they passed the test in 2 days. They didn't read the book. I'm like, I'm not sure I believe it anyways, but it's certainly not productive for other folks. I I don't understand why they think that's helpful. It's not helpful, right? Because it feeds this myth that you can do this without the work. I am, David. I had a guy just today. He was struggling. We were talking about those scores of 67, and he went up to 75. I said, listen, give yourself the permission to take a mental trip to Tahiti about halfway through, or maybe every third way through. Just you don't have to go use the bathroom. I mean, you can if you want, but just gather yourself, say, okay. That helps for a lot of reasons, because people, when they get going a little too quickly. So I am a believer in taking a strategic pause. Just take a little break halfway through and then close strong. Maybe the last 25 questions do the same thing. So I am a big believer in that, David. Big believer. By the way, try that though when you're doing your practice test, so you know that you don't have a time constraint. Eric wants to know, Wendy, if you passed the 7 yet. There she goes. There's your answer. Yeah, thank you. Like I said, I don't think you're not at risk if you have STC, Kaplan, Pass Perfect. I think you shouldn't be at risk. Dylan, man, that's awesome, my friend. That is awesome. So I can't imagine you're not going to make your mark on Friday. Eli, I apologize. I've been teaching a 7 all week. I did get your emails. I do want to do a 10 debrief with you, and I'm off Thursday, so I'll respond. I apologize for not responding, but I will respond. And if you have some time Thursday, I'd love to talk to you. So let's do that if we can. Tomorrow I'm teaching a 7 all day long. Yeah, the 10 is a beast. The 10 is a beast. I mean, I have a practice exam on the 10 and it nearly killed me. I mean, it's just it's a beast. It's a long test. No, I would just keep grinding. I think you're fine, Dylan. I can't imagine you're gonna have any problem. Whatever you're doing is working. So stay the course, rinse and repeat. Yeah, I think reading is, I'm a reader, so I'm just telling you, I'm prejudicial. I like to read. People make fun of me, but I read a lot. I read, I'm getting ready to go to my cabin here on Thursday, and I'm going to be there for 5 days, and there's no TV, there's no nothing. And what we'll be doing, I'll be reading. Well, you need to do some work, right? 1 week. We got to get those. We want you to get in the 70. There's been many people who score that and still pass, but we would like you to be able to push that into the 70 range to give yourself a margin of safety. So, it's very possible, half glass, half full, half empty. With those scores, I think you could pass, and it's more likely you will than you won't, but it's not where we want to be. We want to be finishing with a practice test score of 70 plus would be where we want to be. I just had a guy today, he got his first 70, and it was 73. And I said, that's great. So that's where you need to be. So the advice is keep working and push that. We need to push that. Maybe there's some commonality, what you're missing, but we would like to push that. Yeah, why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? Go for it. Go for it. Okay, so let me be patient here. I got to get our giveaway tool fired up, so don't get carried away. It takes me a minute to set this thing up. I'm trying to get more confident in this thing, but okay, so boom. Let me share the screen. Okay, let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of that. Well, let me get rid of my banner here. Yep, let's get rid of that. Okay, so triple P. Erica said, let's do triple P. Why not? So if you want to participate in the coaching call drawing, make sure you put it in the way you see it on the screen. All right, Caesar, how Caesar has it there, that's the way. It has to be exactly how it is on the screen. Once you have that in as you see it on the screen, it doesn't do any good to put it in again. It only will pick up once. But if you don't have it in there properly, I see like some of you had like triple space P. No, that won't work. All right, so you got to have it in there as you see it. And then remember, if you do pass, if you win, then you have to send me an email within 1 hour that you're the winner, right? That you're the winner, and then I send you your Zoom invite. And again, you can assign it, you can share it, you can do whatever you want with it. All right, is that it? Okay, here we go. Spin the wheel. The wheel of fortune. Will it land on Erica once again? Let's see. Ooh, Eric, I saw you go by twice. I'd never seen that before. Wendy, woohoo! So Wendy is the winner. So Wendy, just send me an email and I will send you the Zoom invite. Give some thought to what you want to talk about in terms of agenda. It's more helpful if you can tell me what you'd like to talk about. I mean, you don't have to. We could just show up on the call and you can tell me whatever you want to talk about. But if you do, and like in my case with Trina, I can say, oh, do we want to do slides, Wendy? Do we want to do free form on a whiteboard? I mean, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? All right. Anybody, any more questions before we call it a night? Thank you so much for joining us. We do this every Tuesday night. If you're watching this or listening to this as a podcast on Spotify, please check out our YouTube channel because that's where we do most of our stuff. And YouTube is the best way to kind of find us. We do broadcast. This is broadcast to Facebook. I saw we had some Facebook folks. Thank you so much. We have some folks I saw joined us from LinkedIn. Thank you so much. On LinkedIn, sometimes I see that I miss people's questions because it takes the chat, and if I do, then I sometimes respond there. So if I missed you tonight, I apologize. It's not intentionally. Just now put it back in the chat or ask me next time or send me an email, whatever the case may be. All right. Anything else before we call it a night? All right. Well, remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. I'll see you next Tuesday, if not sooner.